Plato asks you to consider that uh, there are a set of people, it's a hypothetical situation, who are living in a cave. They don't come outside of the cave. So for them, whatever they see is light coming into the cave either through the main entrance or through the various cracks and crevices that are there in the rocks of the cave. So he says when the light comes in, okay, when the light comes in, it brings with it the shadows of objects that are there outside the cave. The objects are perhaps stones, boulders, trees, any of these objects. Their shadows come into the cave. Now, the people in the cave, they believe that this these shadows that they are seeing are the real objects themselves. Okay, so the shadow of a tree is confused for a tree itself. The shadow of a boulder or a rock is also considered to be a the object itself. So Plato distinguishes between what he calls the actual and the ideal, and the real, sorry, the actual and the real. The world that we live in is actually like the world of shadows that the cave dwellers are seeing. Okay, so that is the actual world. So he says the world in which we live is also not the real world, it is the actual world. And what is the difference between a real world and an actual world? The real world is that which has perfection. Okay, that which has perfection. The actual is imperfect. You know, the shadow of a tree is not a perfect shadow of a tree, depending upon the angle of the sun, the way in which the light is coming in. It can distort. The tree may seem longer than it is, or it may seem smaller than it is, right? So the world of the actual things does not constitute knowledge. What constitutes knowledge is the knowledge of the real. So how are we to understand the real? Plato gives us two examples himself to make things easy for us. One of the examples that he gives is that of a horse. He says you can collect all the horses in the world, okay, bring them at one place, okay, and if you bring all these horses to one particular place and examine each of these horses, you will find none of these horses are perfect. There'll be some small defect, there'll be something missing or something extra, which makes it imperfect. Okay, so he says the world in which we live moves because it's imperfect. Anything that is perfect doesn't need to move because it has attained perfection, right? So why do you need to move? You move when you're imperfect towards perfection. Okay, so none of the horses for him are the real horses. They are the actual horses because they all have some imperfection. So, which is the real horse? There he will tell you it is the idea of the horse that you have in your mind. The idea of the horse that you have in your mind is that which is the real horse. Okay, it's not the empirical or the object horse that you see, which is the real horse. The perfect horse, which is the real horse, is the idea of a horse that you have. And then he gives us another example because he's fond of geography. And I'm sorry, what am I saying? Geography, geometry. He says you can draw any number of circles. Number of circles that you draw doesn't matter. None of them are perfect. There'll be some imperfection in them, okay, in the circles that you draw. So, which is the perfect circle? The perfect circle for him is the idea of the circle that you have in your brain. So, what he's basically trying to say is that since the idea is perfect, it is the ideal, as in that which pertains to the idea. The ideal is that which pertains to the idea. That is real. The ideal is therefore the real. Now, what Plato wants to do is to try and create an ideal republic. Okay. So you may say, okay, how does he propose to create this ideal republic? What will facilitate, sorry, the creation of the real republic? The answer to that for him is that which comes from what he calls the principle, which was originally a god, but he talks about it less like a god and more like a principle. Uh, PLE, not PAL. The principle or that god is demiurge. Demiurge. It is demiurge who basically acts upon us, acts on our minds, and demiurge is the one who will help us distinguish between the real and the actual and help us in our movement towards the attainment of the ideal so that that can become the real. It can become a perfect world and not remain an imperfect. Now, when you talk about world here, we are not talking about the universe. We are talking about the polis. Okay, that is what you need to keep in mind. So now, how do you move towards this perfection that he wants? So he says it can be done through an education system, primarily. If you're looking at the education system primarily, then you might ask yourself the question, if we are all born with knowledge, which is what he claims, innate knowledge, right? That's what we are saying. If we are all born with knowledge or we have inborn knowledge or innate knowledge, Where is the question of our having to study again? Why go through education? Now, it is here that Plato gives us a clarification. The clarification that he gives us is that if you look at the knowledge in our brains, it is not equal among all people. Okay. He says there are some people who can remember more of what they have learned in the realm of forms or the realm of souls, and they can use that knowledge to move towards perfection. There are others who cannot remember as much as some others did, or as much as some others do. So they can't really be in a position to help move in the direction of attaining the ideal knowledge, which will also be the real knowledge. So the education system that has been devised by Plato is to ensure that governance of the polis is done by those who have been able to retain the most from what they have uh, uh, learned in the realm of souls or the realm of forms. So he says every child born in the Republic will not be brought up as the child of a particular parent or parents. They will all be brought up as children of the polis or the children of the Republic. The Republic will take on the responsibility of looking after all the children. Why is Plato saying this? Plato is saying this because he doesn't want any form of discrimination to creep in. Okay? So people don't know who their children are, and children don't know who their parents are. They are all brought up as children of the Republic. The Republic gives, I have talked to you already about the education system. The Republic emphasizes physical education until the age of 20. And I told you that it is gymnastics and athletics that constitute main education, because this is what he learned from the Periclean oration after the defeat in the hands of Sparta. So he says physical education is the main thing, gymnastics and athletics. And at the end of 20 years, there is an examination. And those who fail that particular examination become the bottommost segment of the society, which he calls, which he doesn't call, it's sometimes translated as appetite and sometimes as abdomen, but a better translation is abdomen rather than appetite. Okay, uh, appetite has a pejorative connotation. It's like they are always hungry. That's not what it is. They constitute the abdomen because these people are the workers. They are the people who become farmers, who grow food in the republic. So this becomes the abdomen. Now, 10 more years of education, and there is a second test. Those who pass those who fail the second test will become the thorax, the chest of the society. These people are well versed in fighting. These are people who are well versed in combat, warfare, all these things. And these people will become the guardians of the republic. They will take on the position of the guardians of the republic. Then comes the question of those who have passed. They are encouraged to study further, to exchange knowledge among themselves further. And this segment he calls the head, because they are capable of ratiocination, which is a mathematical term for rational thinking. But the term that he used is ratiocination. Okay, so or rational thinking. These people are capable of that. So what he essentially claims is that the education system divides people into these three segments: the abdomen, the thorax, and the head. Now, many translations will tell you that these are classes. These are not classes. Please remember that a class is an economic denomination. Okay, a lower class is one who doesn't have enough money. Middle class is okay. Rich class, more than enough money. That is a class, and it is the economic position of a person that determines which class he belongs to. Now, there are some enthusiastic Indian authors who claim that this is like the caste system. This is not like the caste system. Please remember, when we talk about the caste system, we are talking about the caste system now, at least the way it is. We are talking about it on the basis of parentage. Here, you are not brought up as children of particular parents. So, it is purely your ability to recollect things, purely your ability to convert those recollections that you have in your mind into practical knowledge that determines which segment of society you belong to. So it's not even a stratification, because stratification is again, if you're born in a strata or a stratum, you continue to live in that stratum and your children also will come to live in that stratum. He's not saying that. All children are brought up as children of the state. So it doesn't matter whose children they are. So for him, parentage is of no significance at all. It is only how much they are able to recollect the knowledge, how much inborn knowledge they have is what matters to him. So that is why you should use the word segment. So it's perfectly possible that somebody who was born to parents who were in the, what do we say, those who were born in the uh, lowest rung, which is the abdomen, it's quite possible that they will go up to the highest rung. He doesn't deny that at all. Okay, so What do you find in this thing then? What we are finding is that Plato is creating an education system to judge people's capabilities and allot them the appropriate role that they can fulfill in society. That is what Plato is trying to do. And that is the ideal republic where everybody is doing what they should be doing. Everybody is doing what they should be doing and not doing things that they should not be doing. I'm sure in your 2.5 years of doing BA, you have found some people in some department who are not fit to be teachers, who are doing great damage to the education system. I'm sure you have also found that there are people who are perhaps not getting jobs. This is not in the context of your college or our college. There may be somebody who's extremely brilliant, very, very intelligent, but doesn't have the opportunities to go to the best schools, get the best form of education. So they are getting left behind. So this system is imperfection. Plato doesn't want this. And that is why Plato also restricts the number of people in a polis to 5,040. I seriously do not know how he came to this particular number, 5040. He says that should be the strength of the republic. Okay, there should be no more people than that. So he is trying to create this ideal republic where people are doing what they should be doing. And therefore, the republic is something that promotes good life. Good here is to be understood as a morally good life. Okay, moral, but not in the Christian sense of good, which is virtue, not that kind of thing. He's talking about a good life as a life which is fulfilling, not Vijay Mallya's King of Good Times or Kawasaki's Let the Good Times Roll. It is not those kind of good. The good is a fulfilled life. That is what he's talking about. So from this segmentation, which is done as per capability, he arrives at the idea of justice. The moment we talk about justice, these days everybody talks about social justice, but the main idea of justice is essentially a legal idea in our minds. Okay, justice is that which is there in the Constitution. And even those who are fighting for social justice, will say justice should be incorporated, the social justice should be incorporated into the Constitution. Ambedkar asked for reservations for those people who were deprived of a good quality life for centuries. And he says you have to give them reservations so that they can catch up with the rest of the society, right? So that's a legal kind of an argument. So our idea of justice is based in this legal jurisprudence. In Plato, it is not that at all. In Plato, what we find is that the system of justice is something which is based in mathematical or geometrical symmetry. Okay, you know what is symmetry? Symmetry is if you draw a perfect square, it is symmetry. If you draw a square and divide it into perfect squares with squares within the squares, if they are perfect, then that is symmetrical. For him, the ideal society is that which has a symmetrical system of justice. And the highest he calls the philosopher king. Now, please remember, the philosopher king is not one person. Okay, it's not one person. The philosopher king is actually the group of people who have passed the 30-year exam and have continued to study, and they live in a commune, commune. Okay, a commune or a community. Now, Plato said the others belonging to the abdomen and the thoracic segments, they can have marriages, but he said no marriages for those who are in the philosopher king category. And interestingly enough, people say Platonic is non-sexual. Okay, you say, I enjoyed a Platonic relationship with a girl, which basically means non-sexual relationship, which is a distortion of what Plato says. Because Plato actively encouraged free sex among the commune, which is the philosopher king. And that's why he said no marriages. Okay, so he was somebody who believed that this kind of not being tied down to one partner for life, monogamy as it is called, not being tied down to a partner for life is something that will help in the achievement of what he basically thinks uh, as the evolution of the human race. There is the explicit usage of the term Superman, not in English, in a Greek word, the equivalent of that he uses. And this is the term that is picked up later by Friedrich Nietzsche in the 19th century. And he proclaimed, God is dead. It is time for the Superman. Okay, but that's in a different context, and I won't talk to you about that now. So he thought that free breeding in the commune could lead to more intelligent children, which is uh, something worth considering as a thought which has something to do with genetics today. Okay, so people today say intelligences are also determined not just by the environment but also by genetic factors. Anyway, we'll not get into that right now. So he believed in the philosopher kings, and if these people governed the republic, then things would be fine. They would ensure that there is total order and symmetry in society. So what is this order and symmetry? If you are an abdomen class person, and if your duties consist, not class, I'm sorry, abdomen segment person, and if your duties consist of doing X, Y, and Z, you will do X, Y, and Z only. You will not do anything else. You will also not do X, Y, Z. If you have to do X, Y, Z, you will do all three, X, Y, and Z. Similarly, if you are the thoracic class and your duties are A, B, C, then you will do A, B, C only. You will not do anything other than A, B, and C. Nor will you not do A, B, and C. You have to do all three. Same thing can be said about the philosophers. They have to take the reins of governance. They take the reins of governance. They maintain order in society. So justice is a square which has further squares, perfect squares drawn in it. If somebody in the abdomen class is not doing Z and doing only XY, then that disturbs the symmetry. That is a system of injustice or non-justice. Or if somebody who's supposed to do XYZ is also trying to do A or B or C, that also disturbs the symmetry and is not acceptable. Then, if you're A, B, and C, you pass the exam at the 20th age of 20. So you can definitely do XYZ. So don't feel tempted to do XYZ just because you can do it. Because if you do it, then you're breaking the symmetry again. You're not doing your job, you're doing someone else's job. So everybody has to be only performing their duties that have been entrusted to them. And the highest form of this duty is the governance system, which is in the hands of the commune of philosopher kings. So the education system of Plato gives rise to segmentation of the population as per capabilities, which are how much you can remember from what you were in the realm of forms or souls. And this leads to the idea of justice, where everybody is doing what they can, and not more, not less. That is symmetry. That is his geometrical symmetry. So the philosopher king class, he believes, can take care of the entire republic, which is the ideal republic. I'll stop here. It says less than 1 minute. And we meet again tomorrow. We'll try and finish later tomorrow. Okay. So thank you very much. It has been very kind of you. And I'm sorry for not coming for 2 days. I mean, not taking classes for 2 days. But my health was just not cooperating. I was in a bad shape. Okay. Thank you very much. We will finish this tomorrow, Plato, and get on with it.